Boss Rush Week 3. Yes, let's cover some of the champions that I used against this and some others I would recommend as well. A few times I've gone back on this and tested a few of them out. Some work well, some not so, but I would really say that there's a lot of hashtag metal. Well, there's a good chunk of hashtag metal in this particular mission, and I would say if we get the buff to Magneto in time, then it would be nice to go back and use it on this. But yeah, c'est la vie. Let's continue on with the video. Playing the game at the moment is very unpleasant, and it's just because like I'm sweating all the time. It's, as you know, as a lot of people know, it's quite hot at the moment. So every time I find myself playing, I find myself just sweating all the time, and it ain't good. It ain't fun to play the game, especially when like you're sweating and you're all clammy. And the game isn't functioning. It's not a good time to play a mobile game, I must admit. One of the biggest tips I must give anybody if you are thinking of a champion to go through and demolish, let's just say 4 or 5 fights, actually even all of it, why not? Corvus Glaive is made for this. So first and foremost, you get your first mission by doing the heavy attack on the evade of Stealthy Spidey, Mysterio is a tech, and then finally Sunspot is indeed a mutant. So that's 3 missions there. It's up to you if you want to trigger off any kind of synergies with that, but I would say that's fine because it leaves you with more available slots. Then you've got just class advantage, and it's a pretty much good one as long as you don't do any debuffs on Warlock, and we'll go over each fight in detail in a moment. And the great thing is, once you've got to this point, you've got 3 of the missions done. You're going to be like, right, well, I've got a good counter against some of the Frostbite or Cold Snap, I can't remember, it's one of the two, that you're able to play quite aggressively and be able to slay. And in any case, just taking on Black Widow Clairvoyant quite nicely, especially if you're quick and effective and efficient, you should be absolutely fine with that. But as well, Quake seems to be a great option for a lot of this as well. I would say there are a few fights that would not apply, but that could be like the likes of Sunspot or the fact of putting some kind of debuffs on Warlock. But again, that's just very kind of like wishy-washy, airy-fairy, and also Frozen Air when it comes to Arcus. So maybe Quake wouldn't be best for all of the fights. She just would be advantage for some of the fights. In any case, let's go individually on the bosses we face. Let's kick things off with Stealth Spidey. I must admit for this, I did try out other examples like Archangel, which did it very much fine. Any champion that does True Strike would be of kind of great help for this. But most champions will be able to get through Stealth Spidey. I think it's a very open and shut case for this. As long as you watch out for when the evade pops up, because it could be a case you've done an attack, you leave yourself exposed, you get hit. Always best when doing it when you've got evade on the enemy is to do something like a heavy attack or just like swipe right for a medium. Don't commit to any other kind of like taps on the screen, but then swipe back once you see evade pop up, as it will go grey until he does a special attack and you repeat again. But this is a very straightforward fight. When it comes to Mysterio, if you're not planning to use some of the ones that I've mentioned, in particular Corvus, which would be good to build a mission on, then you want to look for champions that interwork well with some of the champion's abilities. Like, well, if you're on a poison immune champion, the likes of Medusa could be of a handy nature for this. I've played about with Ronan for a little bit. Didn't really come off that well in Dict, which was the thing that I wanted to try. It didn't come off as well as I wanted. The stun didn't last for very long, so therefore wasn't completely helpful. Yes, I was using a 4-star version. Yes, it was at 45 signature, but you know, if you've got higher signature and want to test that against that single physical resistance buff that the champion has, then you have at it. That would be something to consider if you wanted to. But yeah, apart from that, I've seen people use OG Thor, but anything that's a class advantage or anything that's poison immunity would be good. Just after he's thrown special attacks, just don't go to attack the enemy. If you know Mysterio, he does get some bonus effects, especially from an SP1's perspective, and as well with an SP2. So let that ring out. Watch out for the SP2. Try and keep it to SP1. If you do get hit on an SP2, or you get thrown an SP2 at you, even if you block or evade, you will get power drained. So that's not exactly effective and helpful if you want to build power to do some devastating attacks, which I found out firsthand when I waited too long with my Corvus Glaive, and I was like, I want to throw a special attack, and yeah, had no power for it. And now onto Sunspot. Now for Sunspot, I think it's trial by fire that's the most annoying. If the defender is not struck within 2 seconds, of the attacker receives an incinerate debuff, dealing 100% of defender's base attack direct damage over 10 seconds. So if you've got an incinerate immune champion, that may be of value, but if you are building up with Corvus the missions, then you'll just kind of rough it out and obviously keep up with your amount of hits as much as possible. Also, if you are finding that, you don't have those options, then interwork well with the debuffs. And I don't know if it would be of value to use the likes of Ghost, where you're able to phase some of the debuffs coming towards you, which will come back in a minute, and Ghost may be of value for this particular fight. But any champion will do. Maybe if they've got like an SP1 that's unblockable, could be really helpful. Like Dr. Doom, for example. If you've got an unblockable SP1, it means that you're keeping up as quickly as possible to make sure you don't get those pesky incinerate debuffs on you. Now over to Warlock. One of the good champions to try is Corvus Glaive. Unfortunately, I don't want to say like the entirety of this fight is built for Corvus Glaive, but it kind of is, especially with the champion throwing off shock debuffs now and again. It's great to know that Corvus will be able to interwork with that, especially if you've got him awakened. He can be really great against this particular fight. As well, he doesn't throw any debuffs, which would look to trigger the likes of empowered immunity. So that's something that is speaking towards him as an advantage. I did use Medusa against this fight. Bubble Shield is annoying, so it may be a case that you want to play this in more of a intercept only manner. And do watch out for punishing on special attacks. I've found that a lot of the times AI response or server latency has meant when you're trying to swipe back or swipe out after special attacks are being thrown, it is less than likely that you'll actually engage with the enemy, which does make for some very frustrating gameplay, and you change your playstyle not to be too aggressive and reckless or take the risk, so to speak. Either way, using Medusa was kind of fun with this, especially as Armor Break was triggering off Masochism, which meant I was free to do stuns as much as I like. Just got to watch out for Bubble Shield, but I did find that with a class advantage, there's nothing really to worry about with the triggering off of Masochism, and as well the extent of Bubble Shield bursting. I think I didn't even come close to 10 with both times of trying, and that's the thing, don't get to 10 and you'll be absolutely fine. But there are a lot of things with class advantage I would recommend with this fight. OG Thor, Ronan could be quite a fun interaction, just as long as champions do not throw debuffs that the enemy is immune to, as it will trigger off a good amount of power gain. Next up is Arcus. Arcus is actually pretty fun if you have some really interesting counters. Now, one of the best counters is, unfortunately, Corvus Glaive. This, as I said, is a fight where you build up 3 missions, have interactions with the previous Warlock fight, and as well Arcus as well. He just completely slays this. There's also stuff with personal space. While the attacker is close to the defender gains up to Fury buff every 3 seconds. I would say that if you were playing it with a not a Mephisto. Mephisto could work. But I think Morningstar could be quite a cool interaction. If you build up buffs on the enemy, he's got power gain, he's got fury buffs, then it's going to be a case you could absolutely slap the heck out of Arcus by throwing an SP2 of Morningstar building up to this fight if you've gained off some souls, or it's the case that you've just gone in for this fight with this particular counter. But as long as you keep your distance from frozen air, you should be absolutely fine, or have a champion that's able to deal with that. That's why Corvus was in this particular matchup, because he just makes this easy. Like this was just completely easy for me. I need to make this video as quickly as possible, and that champion was the one that helped me out. I've got to move on to other content. We've got Variant 5 today. Everyone is busy, busy, busy. Which finally leads us on to the likes of Black Widow, Clairvoyant. For this particular fight, I ended up having to use 2 champions through a few silly mistakes and sweaty fingers. Now, I used Cap Infinity War first and foremost, finishing off with Corvus. It worked out well for that working in conjunction. Was I able to throw some of the special attack with the heavy attack prior to build that passive effect of Fury? No. So therefore, the damage output for the special throwing wasn't great, but that's just what it is. I did have a skill on my team as well as tech. Did I find the extent of shrugging there, which I thought would be with some of the debuffs? No. This is where a champion like Corvus was good to finish off the fight, but a champion like Ghost would have been so much better. There are options out there like Hulkbustert that does reduce the extent of bleed and poison effects coming in, but maybe a double immunity champion would have been a little bit better for the situation. This is where your intercept game needs to be on point, and as well just watching out for special attacks and creating plenty of distance. Anything that's class advantage would be pretty good, and I don't know if the likes of Mr. Fantastic would be helpful, or as well champions that aren't part of the champions makeup of debuff immunity. So the likes of Iceman with Frostbite and Cold Snap. The same thing with a lot of other champions that throw things like shock damage. They could be of value for this because, as we know, poison and bleed immunity is helpful, but the champion does throw bleed and poison effects. So it's just really looking to find something that is not going to get those effects or is resistant to them, or throws something that is not bleed or poison, like shocks, like cold snaps, as you know. There we go. That's been a little bit of an overview of this week's boss rush. As I said, very sweaty at the moment. I'm hoping that by next week it's a bit more drier. I'm going to try and do some Variant 5 streaming. He says, fingers crossed for later on. I'll probably do it on Twitch and then record some stuff to then put together for a video, whether or not I do an initial clear guide, whether or not I do a 100% guide down the line. I will look to do that, definitely. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Check out some of the content posted recently on the channel. More than likely a lot of stuff from today, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.